Alright, a couple quick announcements before I start the video for real. I'll probably leave some timestamps if you want to skip ahead to the team preview and the games. So first, I want to give a big shout out to Mr. Jambad, who used my team in a video recently. And so if you're coming from his channel, thank you, and big shout outs to him. And I want to give a big shout out to Seth Nader, who pointed out that I had comments disabled on my videos, which was not my intention. So YouTube always asks you whenever you're making a video, is this for kids? And I'm like, yeah, it's Pokemon, it's for kids. But I didn't know that that meant that they were disabling all comments on any video that's quote-unquote for kids. So these videos are no longer for kids. You know, Pokemon, this game, is not for kids, not at all. And now I guess I can swear more, because I don't have to worry about kids watching. But yeah, those are the two announcements, and I'll be back in a second with the team preview. So, back with team preview. With this, the last episode in Road to Zacian Suspect Test laddering. And it's the same team we've been using, the sort of 5 guys in a Groudon team. We got especially defensive Veltal, Necrozma with Shed Shell because Gothitelle is sort of a thing, sort of a mixed Palkia, Bandit Ho-Oh, defensive Groudon with Dragon Tail again for Gothitelle, and Scarf Xerneas, timid, so it helps with Kyogre, it outspeeds Kyogre. So I was looking at my bids from the Suspect Test laddering, and I couldn't find any of the ones after what we did before. I don't think there was much left, but here is sort of the final battle I had on the Suspect Test. Here we go. So I'm facing this guy, Ebanares? I don't know. I decided to lead Groudon because I expected probably a Kyogre lead, and I want to get the Sun up to make Thunder less accurate, and to decrease the power of Water Spout, so when I switch Palkia in, it will take less damage. So that's exactly what happens. I'm slower, and I switch out into Palkia, but my opponent makes the switch into Espeon. Maybe, I don't know. He seems to be using this Espeon to try and prevent rocks, but like, I'm not staying in. So we do this, but the thing is, it's an Espeon. You know, it's a special attacker, and so I have a Ho-Oh. And even with not max bulk, Ho-Oh's pretty great. It's going to take on Espeon all day. I don't know if this was a Specs Espeon or Scarf or whatever, but anyways, it's doing nothing. So, Ho-Oh comes in. I click Brave Bird because my opponent's Brave Bird switching is not great, and if my opponent predicts a Sacred Fire, like so many defensive Ho-Ohs have, that Kyogre's gonna get nuked, and it did, because Banded Brave Bird. So I'm expecting that was like some sort of offensive Kyogre. So Zacian comes in, goes for Wild Charge. I get into my Necrozma and just heal up because I need to, because Zacian, otherwise it's going to get a kill. Next time it comes in, again, back into Ho-Oh. And I think here I go for Sacred Fire. I think I was predicting either the Zacian or maybe the Veltal, but I miss, which stinks. But then I dodged the Rock Slide, which is great. I've seen a lot more Rock Slide on Veltal lately. But then Xerneas comes in, gets the knockout with the Scarf Moonblast because I'm faster. My opponent goes into Zacian and starts doing Zacian things, just staying in on its counter and hoping to crit fish. And I have to like get all these predictions right because, you know, if I don't heal and my opponent switches, then next time the Zacian comes in, I lose him on. So, you know, I'm really in the back. I have to spam Moonlight. So we're doing this, and then finally I guess he's gonna stay in, because he stayed in the last like 4 or 5 turns, and so I take my opponent out with a Sunsteel Strike. Espeon comes in, takes me out. I don't really need this thing anymore, so I sack it. Ho comes in. What do I do here? I go for Sacred Fire. I'm not sure why. I probably should have gone for Brave Bird, but it's over. It's probably basically over. My opponent takes me out with Ditto, but dies to recoil and then forfeits because, you know, I have a Ho-Oh and they have a Espeon and a Shedinja. So that was the game, and I got a Rex, which is great. Now I want to discuss a bit more about Zacian. So, what I was saying in the first video of this suspect test laddering, there are a couple things I forgot to mention. The first is my general thoughts on banning Pokemon in Ubers. So, Ubers used to be the ban list for OU and nothing more. And it's where all the, strongest cover legendaries live and stuff like that. So usually I'm very hesitant to ban anything from Ubers. I think the only other suspect test I participated in was for Gengar, for Mega Gengar, sort of before we knew about the Hypnosis set, and I voted do not ban because Mega Gengar, while very good, is frail. It takes a turn to get Shadow Tag. I didn't really think it was too much of a problem. You know, maybe if you were running like really Blissey dependent stall or something, it was maybe kind of scary, but it was sort of being tested for being a trapper, and I thought it isn't even a great trapper. It's, Gothitelle right now, I think everyone's finding out is a really good trapper because it can kind of switch in, and once it switches in, you're just stuck because it already has Shadow Tag. So I'm not really big on banning things from Ubers. A couple things I didn't mention in the first episode too was that Zacian, because it really has only one check, I'm not even gonna call it a counter, because it has only one check here in Necrozma, there is no prediction with it. Like, you bring in the Zacian, your opponent has Necrozma, they kind of have to go into their Necrozma. So, in that way, playing with or against Zacian isn't really that skillful, because you always know that, well, the only thing that can really take this on is Necrozma, and that's just about it. In that way, it's sort of uncompetitive. So, also, sort of the only Pokemon that's ever really been banned from Ubers outright. Baton Pass is banned and stuff like that. Sleep Claws exist, but the only Pokemon that's been banned has been Mega Rayquaza. And that thing was completely ridiculous, and there's no way you can convince me that thing belongs in Ubers, even if Ubers is the place with all the strongest Pokemon, because that thing was ridiculous. Like, it would set up one Dragon Dance, and because you can have a Life Orb and still be Mega, it would just sweep everything. It was a joke. And Zacian, I don't think is really quite that strong. It also can sort of do a similar thing, because it is so fast and relatively bulky, and it just clicks Swords Dance, and suddenly you're like sweeping teams just about, unless, minus some Choice Scarf or something. So some mons, when they're thought about being banned, are good because they can trap things, or they're really good breakers. But sort of one of the most egregious things you can commit as a Pokemon that's being suspect tested is just being able to just set up and sweep a whole team, and that's kind of what Zacian does. It's pretty nuts. So I kind of want to make that comparison, that it's sort of Mega Rayquaza-like. So, as you probably can tell what I'm hinting at, now that we have Rex, I'm gonna vote ban. Like, this thing is, it's pretty absurd how good it is. It's just, it's way too good. There's no skill to it. It's so over-centralized that everybody has to run defensive Necrozma. And even that is only a check, because it can beat that. It has a great move pool, it's very bulky, it's easily splashable. I think easily splashable actually isn't like a knock against it. This is Ubers, like there are things that are centralizing, but this thing is over centralizing to a point where it really only has one good check, being Necrozma. Kyogre, like I was talking about in the last video, is centralizing, but there are multiple checks to Kyogre and counters to Kyogre. This is something completely different. It's super duper fast. It has a choice band but can switch up moves. And I worry that if we keep this in the tier, not only is it not competitive, but eventually life is gonna come down to some Zacian speed ties. So yeah, I will be voting ban. Get this thing out of here. It's completely ridiculous. I think 130-ish people got Rex. They're saying they needed like 86 ban votes in order to get the 2/3 necessary to ban. I'd be shocked if it takes more than 95 people to vote for them to get 86 ban votes. I think that over 90% of people will vote ban, and it could even be as high as 95. I don't really think this is going to be very competitive, because based on my play with Zacian, my experience with Zacian, seeing what other YouTubers are saying, seeing what people are posting on the Zacian forum, anyone who seems to have a good knowledge of the Ubers tier tends to think that this thing just needs to go. Maybe we can reintroduce it in Gen 9 if Primal Groudon's in the tier. But for Gen 8, this thing, it's gotta go. It's too much. It's just way too much. So it's Zacian gone, which I expect it to be. What is next for the Ubers tier? And I think what is next is the suspect test of Calyrex Shadow Rider. So I think I called it Ghost Rider before. I don't know. Like, I actually don't own a copy of the game Sword or Shield. I don't even own a Switch. So yeah, it's Shadow Rider. And this thing is, I think, going to be a much more interesting suspect test. I don't think that the final vote will be 90% in either way. It's very over-centralizing. It basically forces an Yveltal on every team, and it can just sweep you, if you're not prepared, or your Yveltal goes down because, of its incredible speed and the fact that it gets a boost every time it gets a knockout. So it is sort of like Zacian in those ways, but there are a lot of differences too. It's not very bulky. Its typing, Ghost Psychic, is pretty terrible. Just ask Lunala. And its move pool, well, not totally horrendous, like Regieleki bad. It's not great. You have like Psyshock, Dark Pulse, that weak fairy move, Draining Kiss, which is very weak, like a base 50 move. Of course, it's not a terrible move because it gives you some health back, but it also gets like Leaf Storm, which isn't really relevant. Although Leech Seed, sub Leech Seed is pretty good. It also gets like Trick, which is pretty good for crippling things like a Yveltal. So its move pool is not great. It's certainly nothing close to Zacian's, but it's not terrible either. So for those reasons, I think that it's going to be a much more interesting suspect test of Calyrex Shadow Rider than it has been of Zacian. Like Zacian, I was always kind of, yeah, this is probably pretty broken. I really was trying to keep an open mind at the beginning, and I was thinking, well, maybe, 4 move slot syndrome, maybe, we do have sort of a check to it, but no, it's crazy. It's crazy how it takes like no skill to just predict the Necrozma, because your opponent has to go into the Necrozma, and it just beats its only really decent check. Otherwise, you have to run something like Quagsire, which is, just gonna let anything in. So I was always leaning towards banning Zacian after, the first day. You know, it's just like, this is ridiculous. But Calyrex, I think, is going to be a bit different because of its sort of lack of bulk and lack of move pool, and of course the typing. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that, and thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, and comment down below now that I figured out how to enable comments. And I hope everyone's staying safe in these crazy times. I'm in like Washington DC and I'm preparing for the apocalypse, so wish me luck. Alright, see you next time.